Hello and welcome to this short demo on the Go integration Alpaca. I want to show you a few features we have and how you can use them. We are going to create a new Go repository by just clicking on the little plus here next to your GitHub account. You can choose that you want to create a PTE, for example. Then you can enter a name for that. You can choose that the repository should be private. And then the repository is created for you in the background based on the Go template repositories, and it is shown here in the list. This is a single project repository by default, so there is just a single project within that repository, and there is no app yet here, so we can create one in the next step. I want to create a normal app. I want to call it my app. Publisher is Marcus. I can also enter an ID range, and then the workflow is started to create a new application for me. This takes a while. While this is running, I'm going to already create a new container, which we can later on use to develop. For that, again, I just click on the little plus here next to containers. I can enter the name of my new container, my dev environment, for example, and now retrieving the settings from that project within the repository, and is now will then create a new container based on that settings. Okay, so my application is ready as well. I can also see it here on my list. I can see some details about my application that has been created. And now I'm basically ready to start developing. For that, I'm cloning the repository. This can be done by just clicking on the clone icon here next to the repository. And I can choose a folder for that. I want to open the cloned repository, and I also want to open the workspace. And yeah, now I can see I have my application here, also some Go system files. And I now just need to wait until my container is basically running. And I will come back when this is the case. So I'm ready to connect my local development environment against this container. I can do that by simply doing a right click and say create launch.json. This creates the code in launch.json to publish against this container then. And I can also copy my password. And then I'm going to open the app.json, for example, and I'm clicking on download symbols, choosing my container, entering my GitHub username there and my generated password. And now it's going to download the symbols for me. With that, I'm ready to work on my first feature. I'm creating a new branch for that. Feature code unit, for example. And there I'm just doing a very simple thing by creating a new file. Creating an code unit, very easy, just for testing. And then I'm ready for publishing, so I can just hit F5. Compile my application. So here in the web client, I can also just enter my GitHub username and my generated password. I'll go ahead, test my changes and so on. And if I'm ready and I think the change can be merged, then I'm going to commit this one, and I'm creating a pull request as well. So my code unit, I can commit this one, and I can also push my change. It then asks me if I want to create a pull request. I will do that one as well. can do this right inside of VS Code. Let Copilot generate my pull request title and description. So I can also see the pull request here, see what happens, and also see that some checks have been started. And while it's then reviewed, we are going to set up some environments where we want to deploy to later on. So I'm switching again to the Alpaca extension, and under environment, we add an environment. So I'm just going to the plus here, enter the tenant ID of the environment, to the client ID. So I generated the app registration beforehand. I'm just entering the information here. I can give it a name. Let's name it QA. Projects should be every, and I want to enable continuous deployment. So this now adds my deployment target or deployment environment. And let's now just wait for the pull request to succeed, to be merged. Checks of my pull request have now succeeded. I can also see it here on the left in the list by the check mark. So I'm going to merge it. Okay, so we can now see that the deployment is currently running, and let's now wait for it to succeed. Okay, so our deployment has succeeded. So we can now have a look into the SaaS environment by clicking this button here. It will go directly to the right SaaS environment that was targeted for the deployment. Just have a look, the extension management. And we can see that our application has been deployed successfully. Okay, so now let's imagine that the feedback from the QA system or QA environment was successful. So we are now ready to create a release. We can add a new tag. Let's say that's the release 2.3.4. We can optionally increment our version after the release has been created, so we can continue with deployment. I will skip that for now. This is not a pre-release, and I don't want to create a release branch. Okay, so our release has been successfully created. You can see it here on the left. We can also see and download the artifacts if we want to, and we can also open it up in the browser, and we can see a small changelog, what has happened, and some more information about that one. Okay, so now you saw what you can do with COSMO Alpaca, basically the whole development workflow. Our goal is basically that you can do everything right from VS Code without having to switch to the browser again and again, and without having to search for settings, change configuration files, adding secrets, and so on manually. But we want to make it as easy as possible, basically. Okay, so you can get started by just downloading the COSMO Alpaca preview extension from the VS Code marketplace. So just search for the COSMO Alpaca preview, install that one, then you get the sidebar icon, you can sign in from there to your GitHub account, and then you can get started. And if you want to have more information, you can also go to cosmoconsult.com/CosmoAlpaca, and there you get more information. Or also, you can always contact me if you have anything.